When Clough was peddling his 1701 almanac, it is estimated that there were nearly 70 lighthouses worldwide. England boasted 14, many of which were well known to American colonists who traveled to and from the mother country, the most famous being the lighthouse built upon the dreaded Eddystone Rocks. Located 14 miles southwest of the port city of Plymouth, the Eddystone Rocks is a reef of gneiss and granite that is almost entirely submerged at high tide, when only a few feet of it break the surface. It is an oceanic hazard that had long terrorized mariners. When Christopher Jones, the master of the Mayflower, left Plymouth in 1620 with a motley assortment of pilgrims and strangers on board, he gave the rocks a wide berth, portraying them as ragged stones around which the sea constantly eddies, and a great danger, for if any vessel makes it far to the south, she will be swept to her doom on these evil rocks. Toward the end of the 17th century, complaints about the great number of ships lost to the Eddystone Rocks reached a crescendo, compelling Trinity House, the English organization in charge of lighthouses, to authorize the construction of a lighthouse on one of these evil rocks so as to warn mariners away. Henry Winstanley spearheaded the project. Neither an engineer nor an architect, he had made his name as an entertainer and entrepreneur, his greatest claim to fame being Winstanley's Waterworks near London's Hyde Park, which featured fantastic fountains and water-drenched tableaus of classical gods. Winstanley invested his profits in shipping, and it was after 2 of his ships foundered on the Eddystone Rocks that he offered to finance and build the lighthouse on this desolate, wave-swept location. That he had no particular qualifications to take on this tremendously difficult task bothered the exceedingly self-assured businessman not in the least. After 2 years of backbreaking work, the Eddystone Lighthouse commenced operation in November 1698. In subsequent years, Winstanley continued to modify his creation, resulting in a granite, wood, and iron structure 120 feet tall, which, not surprisingly given Winstanley's theatrical bent, exhibited a number of rather whimsical design elements, including an elaborate weather vane, as well as 6 iron brackets outside the lantern room that held aloft ornamental candlesticks. A lamp and 60 candles burning within the lantern room provided the illumination. Winstanley was extremely proud of his lighthouse, and when people questioned its ability to withstand the worst that the weather could offer, he confidently responded that it was his most fervent wish to be in his lighthouse during the greatest storm that ever was, so he could prove the naysayers wrong. He should have wished for something else. When the tempest that would go down in English history as the Great Storm barreled into the coast on November 26, 1703, Winstanley and his work crew were at the lighthouse making repairs. All of them perished, along with the lighthouse, which was completely washed away except for a few twisted iron supports embedded in the rock. The Eddystone Lighthouse had proved its worth for 5 years, during which time the rocks had not claimed a single ship. And if anyone needed more proof, just 2 days after the lighthouse was destroyed, a ship full of tobacco coming from Virginia crashed on the rocks, killing all but 2 on board. Until the last moments before impact, the ship's master had been desperately looking for the lighthouse that was not there. 6 years later, a second Eddystone lighthouse was built on the same foundation as the first, to the great relief of merchants and mariners alike. While there was no question as to the efficacy of lighthouses, Clough's question was not whether lighthouses were valuable in general, but whether building a lighthouse at Point Allerton in particular was a good idea. Located in the town of Hull at the tip of the Nantasket Peninsula, jutting into Boston Harbor, Point Allerton had, in effect, been a beacon of sorts for decades. In 1673, local residents built a crude stone structure upon which they burned fire bales of pitch and oakum in an iron grate. This, however, was not a lighthouse, but rather a bonfire used to alert nearby towns to the approach of enemy ships. An actual lighthouse, by contrast, would be of much greater utility, safeguarding commerce because of its strategic position near the largest city and preeminent port in the American colonies.
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.